like. I did some independent films with Master P. A lot of those movies did really well.
I'm ambitious, I'm a hustler. I have my own lane.
That's the thing about comedy. You wake up every day, you don't know if you're funny that day.
What up, what up, what up, what up? Welcome back to the program. So let's go live with Lamont King. We are now live. And guess what? I am Lamont King. This is a live show. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. to 7 East Coast time. Shout out to everybody on the West Coast and worldwide watching, especially if you're watching in the Humor Mill app. Make sure you download the Humor Mill app, #1 source for comedy and news and entertainment. They're carrying some programs on their app. Now they're on the Roku, they're on the Fire Stick. We worldwide. We're on there. So, yeah. Shout out to our new sponsors this week. We got some people that donated. James Wright and Taryn Jackson, or Tehran, depending on what part of the country you're from. What up, TJ? Thanks for supporting. I appreciate y'all. You too can support us. We are 100% viewer supported by viewers like you. $ Lamont King 06 to support and join the Patreon. Hey, Sean King is really bringing bad press to Patreon, but mine is still good. Patreon.com, Mr. Lamont King. Become a patron. We appreciate you. And of course, we are broadcasting, as always, from newly remodeled Drunken Fruit Studios, courtesy of drunkenfruit.com. Go visit them. Good situation. I hope everything's well. Peanut Gallery, what up? Good to see y'all. See something, share something. Yes, of course. Thank you, Imani. You see something, share something. Good to see y'all, man. Tehran Jackson. Tehran. I got to say it like that. Tehran Jackson. When you say Jackson names, people, you got to be like Tehran Jackson. All right, so it's Throwback Thursday. It's so much. I can't even. The news is moving too fast for me to even cover it. I was all set to talk about the amazing stance that the NBA took. Pride over money. Said, we're not playing for you suckers, you jive turkeys, until you show us some respect. And then they go to the table and come away with, all right, well, we're going to play. But listen, we'll have conversations next week about if we're going to keep playing. Naomi Osaka yesterday. I don't care what's going on. Tennis is not important. I am going to sit out and not play. That's derogatory, but I would imagine that's how she sounds. I don't know how she sounds, so don't call nobody on that one. But yeah, and then moments later they go bring her in the room and sit her down, and then it's like, well, I'll play today. But we'll have conversation next week about if I'm going to keep playing. Hey, man, it's real, man. Money talks. All that other shit walks, man. Everybody has a price. Everybody got to feed their family. It's tough. I can't say I'm disappointed. Kind of shocked and surprised. I thought these things would last more than a day, but When we aren't in control of our own economies, this is the type of things that we get. But anyway, so much to deal with. I want to replay a show that we did a couple months ago when we first started that is still relevant, super relevant. And we're just going to get right into it, man. Trauma is real. We're still trying to figure out how to deal with things. And just watch my man Brian drop this knowledge, man. Let's get it. So what we're going to do right now, put this up, is we're going to move straight and welcome in our guest for today. So there's a lot of talk. We talked earlier this week with the author of a book called Marginalized Voices, right? And in that conversation, we talked about what steps we need to take to help our youngsters deal with trauma, right? But a lot of us, that's a challenge because we don't know how to deal with our own trauma. So that's going to be an issue moving forward once things settle down and people can get back to peace of mind if it even ever happens. But our youngsters are really vulnerable right now and they're in a really weird space. So I just wanted to bring somebody else on to talk about ways to deal with those levels of trauma that we're seeing right now. So please welcome this gentleman is a licensed medical clinician. He's the president of Radical Positivity Consulting. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Brian Bailey.
How you doing today, Mr. Lamont King?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you,
Good
guys.
to see you.
Hey, is it possible I could clear up one thing?
Oh, what? I made a mistake
You
already?
made me a licensed medical clinician, and
What-
that's awesome. But I'm a licensed mental health clinician.
Mental health clinic.
Yeah.
It was the M word, and I didn't want to stop. I was like,
get
say
it.
medical. Yeah,
I get it. But medical, I mean, that's awesome.
But as a mental health, don't you deal with medical stuff?
Mental.
Okay.
Mental health and medical. So we're talking about the difference between physical and mental health. Can it tie together? That's a beautiful segue because it absolutely does.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I was just wrong. You wouldn't let me fix it. You wouldn't let me fix it, though. Yeah. Next time, just be like yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
again, you're right.
I'm that. I'll be
You know
that.
what? Come to think of it, you're right.
Because no one's checking. no one's checking.
Right, I get it.
But yeah, so like we do with all our guests, man. Give me a little brief walk of your background and
sure. As you mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of Radical Positivity Consulting, which is a consulting firm that provides therapeutic support to agencies in the metropolitan area, and that supports the look of that is aiding agencies to develop therapeutic programs and curriculums, how to train adults to work with youth and young adults, how to help them build intervention strategies that can focus on youth who are diagnosed with serious emotional disorders. And the consulting firm grew out of a nonprofit organization that I started in 2000 called Positive Nature. And Positive Nature provided direct support services to children who were diagnosed with serious emotional disorders. And what happened is that we were located in the District of Columbia. And what happened is in the process of running this agency, I was learning that the other environments that our youth were engaged in or involved in, be it community, home, or school, the adults that they were working with were, in most cases, we didn't see a therapeutic engagement, man. And then I wanted to be able to teach the adults, and not the children, but teach the adults how to actually engage and work with children. Then Radical Positivity is born.
So meaning when you say that, you mean like before you can get to the therapeutic methods for the child, you have to train the adults how to deal with them.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay,
absolutely,
got it.
Man. We often, as adults, we often ask the children to take risk, right? You work with youth, and you may ask your youth, verbally or non-verbally, to trust you, to have faith in you, you got their back, Okay. But the question that needs to be asked of you is, what risk are you taking, right? When you're asking the youth to take all of these risks and expect them to do it, well, it's the same with us, man, because as we get older and older, we tend to take less risk, maybe because we feel we have more to lose, but we can't ask someone else to take a risk that we're not willing to take. And so it was really about how do we ask Mr. Lamont to put his glass out and let me pour some new skills in it? You don't want to do it.
Mm.
Yeah. So.
But all right, but let me go. And I see you've been working on that word risk too, because the diction is near 100%.
Well, I'm from Baltimore.
Yeah, so yeah,
right?
I
and
see the
I'm
practice.
from Baltimore originally.
Yeah. Do you practice in the mirror? Because that's what it looks.
We speak differently, you know.
Because risk. You're
risk.
giving me all risk.
Yeah. Vulnerability.
So
right.
how can you say multiple risks? Because that's the hard one. More than one risk. How would you say that?
Yeah, no, it's plural.
Yeah, how do you say it?
Risk.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, it's plural by itself. Oh, that's
it stands alone.
Wait a minute. Sidebar. I just learned last year that the plural of computer mouse, like if I had 7 of these, it's mouses. Did you know that? Did you know that? You didn't know that.
I didn't.
I went to a training and got corrected in the training. Okay.
Seven.
So
if you had 7 of those, like in a computer lab, you're not in a room of mice?
No, mouses.
Right. Yeah. So the mice are only for the animal, only for the rodent.
Yeah, apparently.
I get it.
I didn't know risk was singular and plural. You just learned me on that one.
Yeah.
But to your point, though, back to where we were. To your point. So you're in that scenario that you gave. Yeah. I am taking a risk asking them to trust me because I'm bearing the brunt of whatever happens next. If I'm engaging with you and I'm like, yo, listen, trust me on this one. I'm trying to keep you out of trouble. These rules are in place for a reason. Just follow my lead, blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of taking a risk by, bearing the brunt of whatever happens next. Because they a lot of kids, they good with the fantasy world, and they good with making up stuff, and they be like, well, Mr. Lamont told me X, Y, Z, and Mr. Lamont, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So is it in that some level, as for me in that role, there's some level of risk that I'm already taking on?
Well, yeah. So if you want some personal back tapping right now, I'll go with you on that. But your risk isn't valid because you what's that jeopardy there, right? So what happens is here's a great example. I've seen you speak several places to large crowds, and you're comfortable in that place.
Okay.
Well, let's say if you had an opportunity to get a $500 book scholarship for some students, but you had to put on a tutu and do ballet.
Okay.
Right? Or some kind of modern dance, right? Okay. And I know that you can dance and step and all those things, but you had to do ballet.
Okay.
Right? That's a major risk, right? You risk being embarrassed, you risk falling, you don't want to tarnish your reputation, all these things, right? So there's something to lose here, right?
Okay.
So that's the chance, that's the gamble you're taking. So you have to look at the same thing with a youth, that when you ask them to risk trusting you, and they've been, betrayed tons of times, they've experienced trauma, level 1 trauma and level 2 trauma, and there's a difference. The level 1 is you've experienced something, one time or another, and level 2 is that it's repetitive. So they've been abused, hurt, or mistreated or neglected multiple times, and then here you come telling them to do it again.
Oh, okay.
That's a major risk. Something they can lose something here.
Right.
So what you're gonna lose? You tell man, just take my word for it. I'm keeping you out of trouble. That's you don't have any skin in the game. There's no dog in the fight.
Right.
You don't have a nickel in that dime. That's just talk. So that's the difference.
All right. So with your organization, Radical Positivity, and you as a consultant, you mentioned dealing with youth and adults that are dealing with the youth. Who do you find is the more difficult population to work with?
There was a time where I would have I may have said children, and those who are between the ages of 7 and 12. But now that I work with more adults, man, it's us. The adults. We get stubborn. We get caught in our way. We live in a place called denial. I was speaking to you earlier, yesterday, or whatever it was, about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences.
Okay.
And adverse childhood experiences have just really, they've blown up again, probably the last 12 or 15 years, or maybe the last 10 years. And what it says is that the study shows that your adverse childhood experiences will impact you as an adult. And there's a scoring system. So you have a score. I have a score. And if you score a 10 out of 10 or 3 out of 10 or what have you, the greater your score is, the greater your opportunity is to have to manage, deal with, or even suffer, if we choose to use that word, with a mental health or a physical medical disability or challenge, right? But as adults, we feel like, I've been through that as a child and I'm over it. And the fact of the matter is, man, trauma is real. Mm-hmm. We at one time we only heard of post-traumatic stress disorder if it was involving a soldier in war.
Right.
That's not the case. In fact, that belittles everything that you've been through, everything that Lamont King has gone through growing up in Landover, whether it was great or not so great. But we all have the propensity to have to box a post-traumatic stress, and your stress and my stress, they could be very similar, but our responses to them are going to be extremely different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when we look at you, like, what have you been through as a child? Like, has anyone in your family ever been arrested?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay. And the test could seem a little biased at times because it says you have questions like how often, very often, it's a Likert scale, but how often, somewhat often, very often have you been, has profanity been used toward you in the household?
Oh, absolutely. How often? Very often.
Right. So we got to change that question up. Like, how often was it not used?
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah, So I may say, anybody in your family or in your household ever been diagnosed with a mental health disorder? Has anyone ever, grabbed you, hit you, punched you, or any of these things that can seem very minimal,
right.
But the heavier that trauma is, the more it's impactful in your adulthood. Right? The heavier you deal with it, the tougher your childhood is, the tougher your adulthood is. And we have different ways that we're going to deal with it, right? Some of us may actually deal with it in a way that, you may have a young man who's witnessed his father abuse his mother all his life. He becomes an adult, and he's going to do one or two things. He's going to abuse his women or his significant other, or he's going to move directly away from that and sit on the other end of the spectrum and never touch the woman, right? Now, you and I could grow up in the same household under the same experience, and we will respond to that experience differently.
Different, right.
But ACEs says that study says that because we had that experience, it could impact us physically. Heart disease, they tie it to lung disease, they tie it to obesity, they tie it to diabetes. That's good. They tie it to so many different physical medical issues, man. That trauma is real.
And what's wild about that is Dick Gregory used to talk about that all the time. He used to say stress was the number one killer of Black people, and he was very general with that explanation. But then he would go into it, and he was like, "You got to think about all the things we have to deal with, and then in turn they affect us physically, and we don't even know it.
Yep.
Like there's reasons why you overeat. Yeah. There's reasons why you drink and self-medicate and fall out from exhaustion and headaches and aneurysms and all of that because of the trauma that we deal with. And you should have you should have did that a long time ago. And the trauma that we deal with. No, but we're like we're watching you. It's not a phone call. Like we see you.
Yeah, I just process that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're comfortable. Because you're comfortable.
Because you're your show made me comfortable.
That's the
And I
goal.
thought that was your show made me
That was the
comfortable.
goal. Yeah. But yeah, no, so that's real. And I don't think people really put those two things together.
Man, it's amazing you just said that, Lamont, because you just sat there and you would think that you are also a mental health clinician. The things you mentioned are the direct responses to ACEs. That the thing you mentioned smoking. Yes, that's an ACE effect.
Okay.
You mentioned drinking. That's an ACE effect. So there are behavior impacts and there's physical and mental health impacts.
Okay.
So all of that ties together, man. I thought I asked you earlier, like the first time you saw a police brutality or police beating, if memory will serve me correctly, had to be Rodney King.
Right. I mean, on TV.
On TV, right? Where the whole world saw it.
Right.
Now you've probably seen some other things growing up, as a youth or your neighborhood or what have you. But the whole world saw that. And when you saw that, chances are you may have even been in college or coming out of high school.
Yeah, around that time, yeah.
At least in high school, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you saw that when you were 8 or 9, right? And imagine if when you saw that, Rodney King actually died right there on the street. What would that have done to you as a child growing up during the times of Officer Friendly? When we were in school, Officer Friendly came to the school and gave you a badge and a scruff McGruff, coloring book, and they were the friendly person. But if you saw him kill someone that looked like your father in the street with malice and
intent,
you have now increased your ACE score, your adverse childhood experience score.
And I'm gonna have a tough adulthood because of it.
Dude, your adulthood life is gonna be different. You may smoke now. You may drink now. You may be more aggressive, more angry. You may sit and do nothing. You may find yourself becoming at one time an extrovert, now you're an introvert. You don't even go out.
Right.
So, I got a ticket yesterday. And now is not a good time, I feel like, for police to pull me over. Because I'm not okay.
No. Right.
Yeah, I'm not okay. And that's one of the challenges in adults when it comes to trauma that we have to get a hold of. That we can't expect our youth to be okay. We're not even okay.
Right.
Right? He pulls me over, and my wife is in the car. My wife is terrified. And my wife's prayer at the moment is, please, God, don't let the police officer be white. That's her place, right? Please, God, don't let the police officer be white, right? And her fear is not what he's going to do to me. Her fear is, what am I going to say or do to provoke him to do something else? Trauma. We talk about trauma now.
Yeah.
Trauma. And her fear, now she's beginning to become anxious.
Right.
Because she knows I'm not okay from everything else that's happening.
So it's like anxiety is born from a predictive trauma. Like it's a vicious cycle. Man.
I got a $150 ticket. My wife said, I think you were speeding. I said, I wasn't speeding. He pulled me over and he said, do you know your registration is expired? Because you didn't get emissions. Well, emissions have been closed for 3 months.
Yeah, what? Get out of here.
Right?
Are you kidding me?
So, but you can't pull me over because you know my registration is expired.
Right.
Why did you pull me over?
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, this is a Maryland state trooper,
okay.
Right? Why did you pull me over? And he was an African-American or a gentleman from the islands. Why did you pull me over? He said, your tint is too dark.
Oh.
Right? I can't see you through the window. I'm dark.
Yeah.
Right? dark, right?
You don't even have tents on your window. Come on, that was too easy. That was alley-oop.
Alley-oop, right? I'm dark, and the tent may be a little dark, but that's why he pulled me over, because they're trying to meet a quota.
Yeah, it's cool.
But I say all of that to say that my experiences, right? So if I had my godson in the car, he would have been rattled, terrified, because his memory of the police getting someone who are doing nothing is they're going to kill them.
How old is he?
9.
Okay, yeah, right. And so at 9, they have every device in their hand. They have access to all the information. So they've seen it. Whereas back when we was 10, 12, 13, might have been shielded from it. 7, 8, 9, they got everything. They seeing it all.
They're seeing it all. Right? They're seeing it all. Now, how will that affect him when he's 20, when he's 21, when he's 17, when he's 16? When his turn comes, listen to my language, when his turn comes to be pulled over, stopped, and frisked, when his turn comes to have to sit on the curb, when his turn comes to be racially profiled, according to where we are today, his turn is coming.
It's coming, yeah.
It's coming.
If you're just tuning in, Let's Go Live with Lamont King. We're talking with Brian Bailey, who's a licensed mental health clinician, president of Radical Positivity Consulting, and we're talking about trauma and how to deal with in these current times. Now you stand on that. We're talking about ACEs. We're talking about youth trauma that turns into bad adult behavior, habits, or whatever have you. Can even in your example that you just gave, does it help that you're an adult dealing with that level of trauma because your experience, you can process, you have a higher intellectual capability than a child? Like, does it help, or is it hurt because of those things? Because I know what could happen, it's even worse. It's like which trauma in the ACEs model is more of a controllable scenario?
Wow, that's an awesome question. Each individual will be different, right? Because you're going to handle your anxiety and your stress in a complete different way. Some people are going to go jogging, are going to run. Some people are going to drink and smoke. Some people are going to, cocoon. So the difference though with the adults and the children is that we have a bigger platform to kind of navigate through interventions to handle it.
Okay.
And the children, they don't. In fact, they're watching you.
Right. Watching how you handle it.
They're watching are you the enough is enough person?
Right.
Are you the burn it down person?
Right.
Are you the the white man is this person? They're watching how you're going to handle it.
Yeah.
Based on how you handle it will determine how they handle it. And the problem there is most adults, we're scared we got to take the Band-Aid off, pull the covers away. And, why? Lamont, you're not okay.
No.
If you tell me you're okay, you're a bona fide liar.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Right.
I've been unwell.
That's right.
I have been unwell.
Right. You've been unwell, man. And then, and the tough part about that is in not being okay, what do you do when you're not okay? Right? What do you do? Because when you're unwell,
right,
you need to now find treatment for your unwellness.
Right. If you can't find medication, you self-medicate.
Right. So, and then in finding treatment about your unwellness, the curiosity of our human nature wants to now find out, why am I unwell?
Okay.
What caused that? And then we find out the cause, the root cause. And I'm not here to focus so much on systematic racism or the system that causes unwellness. I'm trying to say that trauma is real.
Right.
And if we're going to, give trauma the weight that it should occupy, we're going to have to look at what caused the trauma, man.
So look. Now to that point, let me put this back on the screen because I thought this was interesting. Gianni said his son doesn't want to learn how to drive out of fear for being pulled over by the police. So we're literally, we have individuals who literally put a pause on the natural stages of young adulthood to avoid these scenarios that shouldn't happen anyway. So moving forward, how, like September, October, November, 2021, 2022, like even if I was somebody where, all right, I'm going to get help, but everything's closed, and I'm trying not to self-medicate. How are we adults and young, our youngsters? How are we then supposed to navigate? What are some? Give me two possible remedies on dealing with the trauma as it happens day to day, if it's even possible.
Wow. So
I'm putting you on the spot only because the name of your organization is Radical Positivity.
Yeah. So you had a gentleman who was on your show yesterday, an author. What was the name of his book?
Marginalized Voices, Reggie Williams. That was on Monday.
Marginalized Voices, right. I think if we're going to look at how to deal with it, it starts with a voice.
Okay.
Right? That when we say we're not okay, we have to come to the place where we are not afraid to say it. The gentleman who said that his son said, I don't want to get licensed because of fear of being pulled over. Right. There's another kid somewhere right now at this very moment who will intentionally fail the driving exam and to not disappoint his father for trying to get the license, but his fear won't allow him to get the license because he may be pulled over by the police. Right?
That's layers.
So
that's layers right there.
It's layers because we're talking about a system. Trauma is a system. Remember, there's trauma 1 and trauma 2. Trauma 2 is being something that's repetitive. You're constantly traumatized, right? And then once you are traumatized, it doesn't even take much to continue to watch that grow. We have to first acknowledge trauma.
Okay.
It's about, how do we go about building, resilience, right? And if we're going to build that, we got to be willing to, let me go and acknowledge what's happening. We have to, be able to say, can we teach our children about what they're going through?
Okay.
Can we, get beyond the sympathetic and be empathetic? Can we challenge them there? Can we meet them right there where they are? And that whole talk of, well, that's just how it is in life, and you're gonna go through that. I went through that before. Don't compare your trauma to my trauma. Don't you don't even you have someone pass away in your family, and when they pass away, you tell the person who's passed, the other family member, you say something like, "I remember when my grandmother died, so I know it's hard." Get out of my face.
Yeah, that don't work.
That doesn't work.
Now it's not the time.
My grandmother.
Yeah, now it's not the time.
Now it's not the time.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Don't tell me that. Your grandmother was a bum compared to my grandmother. Right?
Right.
So don't try to share my trauma. I was abused in a different way, man. And when we were talking about building, resilience, we have to look at how are we acknowledging it with our children. How are we leaving the door open for them to share with us their truth?
Right.
Not what they think we want to hear, but their truth of what they're experiencing. I mean, Lamont, can you imagine watching someone die, be killed in front of your face, not get beat bad and die somewhere else, die right there in your face when you're 10, when you're 11? And then your parent or your adult in your life tells you, yeah, man, you just got to be careful. What?
Yeah.
Don't do anything to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Don't do nothing to get pulled over.
So, all right, to that, well, let's push pin that. I want to come back to that because I have something else I was sitting on. So, let's stay right there. But before that, you said we got to move from sympathy into empathy.
Yes.
And you went fast, but I wanted to explain that a little more because words are important, and a lot of people don't know the difference.
Okay.
Sympathy is, oh man, I feel bad for you. Empathy is, I feel what you're feeling. When you empathize with someone, you're taking on the feeling. Sympathy is, I'm sending you console, consolation, and all that.
Yeah.
So, but when you do that, don't you run the risk of having that trauma affect you?
What did we talk about when we first started?
Taking risks.
Right? That is the risk, bro.
He's pretty good. He is pretty good.
That's the risk, though, right?
You're right.
And you can choose not to take it.
You're right.
You can choose. You can say, listen, my life is too valuable. I can't afford to bring other trauma into my life. Somebody else has to do it, right? Everybody has a role. I think we wonder, like, why was there not, like, every black person in the world marching, right?
All right.
And some people stay behind, right?
Right.
Because they have a job to do, right?
Yeah. We were talking about that the other day.
Right? So you may not be the person that can take that risk.
Right.
I know people that want to give back to the community so bad that they go work into the school system and realize the culture shock is in such a way where they can't even manage. They're breaking down, crying and screaming every day. Oh my God, he eats oodles and noodles every day. Really?
Right.
I know some kids who will love oodles and noodles every day.
I'm about to say, he's splurging. They got it. Yeah, what you mean?
We're flavored at that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
2 packs. They double pack.
Right. He cut onions up. He got onions. Now listen, let me tell you what's funny. I was talking to a older sister who is, she's pretty well off now, but she didn't start that way. And I was talking to her and her peer. And I told her, I said, I love to go to Annapolis to this restaurant and got the best onion soup ever. She said, oh my God, Brian, I can't stand onion soup. We used to eat that when we were kids. She said, it ain't nothing but onions and water. The old guy next to her said, y'all had onions? You see what I'm saying?
Somebody is doing bad. There's always somebody right next to you.
Y'all had onions for the water in the onion soup. He got hot water, right? And they're well off now. But I'm saying I share that story because their responses to those traumas completely different. Completely different. And when we are empathetic with an individual, we've decided to put their shoes on, not look at their shoes and admire the tread or the wearing out on the shoe, but we put it on and understand that, I want to be where you are. You can't understand unless you've been there.
Back to the point I put the push pin in. So you were talking about how, there are times where we might tell our youngsters, be like, they seen something like that happen, and without really addressing the gravity of watching a televised murder, we say just be careful and don't get put in those situations. And the last few times that happened, that was actually the rap that a lot of us gave. Like 2-3 years ago, there was this whole trend. Somebody even wrote a book, like a coloring book. There was this whole trend about surviving the encounter. Right? Teaching our young black men, at the very least, you want to make it home. Because anything beyond that, trying to teach an 11, 12-year-old is complicated. And a lot of us are not that equipped to me try to coach you through that and knowing that one day it's going to happen and I'm not going to be there. So I'm telling you, survive the encounter, right? Your developmental mind, 12, 13, 14, 2 years later, you see the George Floyd happen, and you're looking at the TV. Wait a minute, he ain't even do nothing.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen when we mobbing out, we coming home from school, we 4 deep in the car, blasting music, and we get pulled over, and you talking about all of the only lesson I got was survive the encounter. However, I know that it doesn't matter what I do. at 15, 16, I don't care who you are. If you're watching this right now, as a black man, 15, 16, with that mindset, I'm running. I'm running. Ain't no talking.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't have a mature mindset. I don't have an adult mindset that's done, handled and dealt with 30 years of trauma. I got 15 years, 10 of them, speaking English, and 5 of them embedded in social media and watching movies and TV and all that. I'm going off of that. Of course I'm running.
So let me ask you this. With that, so everything that we do is an intervention. And an intervention is an invention to teach new skills and change behaviors that may or may not work. Your intervention is flight, right? Some others' intervention may be flight or fight, right? They're gonna make a decision, right? You know, if they put you in a position where you have no choice, will you, and you're not able to run, do you fight or succumb to the power that's over you?
Probably fight.
Right. So you're gonna make a decision.
And I use that example to kind of generalize for a lot of the youngsters' responses.
Yeah.
But now, me personally,
sure,
I've had an issue with authority since I was young.
Yeah.
So it was always commentary in those scenarios for me. I mean, unfortunately, I look back now. You know, sure, it was cool to be that guy, but I look back now, it could have went the other way any number of times, especially in this area.
Right.
But fight, it'll probably be fight first if I had to, and ain't not saying I'm a tough guy, but the instant reaction is to not submit or subdue. That's my first reaction in those scenarios.
Why?
I don't know. Because it depends on who it was. Like I said, I had an issue with authority and in particular, in particular law enforcement when I was young.
Why?
Because of the things that I saw them do. And at 8, 9, 10 years old, we watching Eyes on the Prize, at the crib on
adverse
experiences,
right? We fall right there, man, and the only way out of that, right? So,
and wait a minute, you right on, and like you said, I followed somebody's lead.
Yeah,
I followed my father's lead because that's how he dealt with him.
Yeah. Ooh, awesome. So what your dad taught you, here's a good example. The Katrina storm.
Okay.
There was a study that was done that showed, and I got to be careful because I don't want anybody to start doing the research on my study, but that was showing that those parents who had resiliency, who were resilient, had kids that were successful and resilient afterwards, right? Who was resilient in that storm. So we have to teach our kids resilience. But those parents who did not, who weren't able to show the resilience, they had kids that were unsuccessful. Your dad poured into you something, whether positive, negative, good, bad, or indifferent, but he poured something into you that made you stand firm on the grounds of, and you're calling it, how did you define what you did? You didn't say you talked back. You had a problem with authority, right? And let's not call it a problem with authority. You felt confident enough not to challenge the authority, but to challenge the motive.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So your dad taught you to challenge the motive, challenge the motive. Henceforth, you are now, there's a show you have now where you open up a platform to speak clearly, directly the truths that are impacting communities today. That's the same guy that challenged the motives of authority as a child. And you recognize today that was risky. This thing could have turned out the other way.
Yeah.
Right? And chances are you're going to teach your children and every child that you rear or that you have an impact on their life or that you tutor, mentor, you're going to teach them that kind of resilience.
True.
Right? And once again, this is your response to your adverse childhood experiences.
All right. So conversely, is there a study? Now, who did this ACEs study? Who did this ACE study?
So ACE came from, oh God. So, oh God, I can send it to you.
Yeah, you got assistants and producers over there? You got producers and assistants over there?
Yeah, my assistant over there, my one producer. Yeah. So I'll tell you who's big now. I don't know where you go now for medical treatment, but if you would pay attention to one of the biggest growing health centers now is Kaiser Permanente.
Yes.
They're everywhere now, right? They're everywhere now. And they had initially started the study and the research, and then it grew so much that it became the focus for mental health clinicians all over the world.
Okay.
Because they were able to now tie medical conditions to your mental health. And this thing started. This is about you and I. This was about youth who were going through some trauma, some experiences. So they were trying to figure out the long-term impact of it. And that changed the game greatly.
Mm. Well, the reason why I asked who came up with it is because if there's an adverse child experience study, then is there the converse to that? Is there a way that you are because of the happy things that happen? Is there a category for that and how you react and deal with that? Because if there is, you should be able to use that to deal with the ACE.
I love that.
Does that exist? Is that a thing?
So let's remember this. When ACE began, it was about health.
Right.
It was about health, right? What's impacting the health of people? What's impacting the health of these communities, of these rich, poor, whatever you want to call it? What's impacting the health? And then they discovered that these things, this study says that the people who are experiencing these things have these kind of health issues. So you're right. If I have if I don't have adverse childhood experiences, is it better for my health? Okay. I guarantee you it is. Hands on, it is. If we live a better lifestyle, we have less trauma. We're not being cursed out and beat on, and no one's homeless. There's no mental health. That has to have some kind of positive effect on your life.
Right.
But here is the thing. That's not getting the publicity.
Oh, got it.
I told you, man, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who said, why aren't we protesting the 104 shootings in Chicago or something that happened over the weekend? Or why aren't we protesting something that happened in Baltimore? And why aren't we not doing anything about black on black crimes? And I was sharing with them several initiatives right here in D.C., right here in Baltimore, that were actually having an impact on youth that was positive.
Right.
But that's not going to be on the news.
Got it. Okay.
They're not showing these initiatives where children are graduating at a better number, not because of COVID, but who are going to colleges and who are involved in positive things. That's not selling. So Black Lives Matter shirts are selling. Nothing wrong with the Black Lives Matter shirt. Don't get me wrong. But, there's another shirt that just focuses on this black teen that's doing amazing things. Nobody's buying that. And CNN, they're not going there. So you're right. Then that's the challenge. And that's the challenge, man. I think you just highlighted something good. Maybe we need to do some more research there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because if there's what's the opposite of adverse? What's the opposite of the word adverse?
I need to open up my dictionary.
But it's fun. Let's just go with fun. Yeah. Fun childhood experience.
Yeah.
And you use those to combat your adverse childhood experience. Is that a thing? Could that be a trend?
Well, those who took you should get your ACE score, man. I'll send you the test.
Okay.
You should take the score, right? Those who had lower, who showed lower scores on the ACE exam proved to be physically healthier than those with high scores.
Got it. Okay.
Right? So if you scored a 10 you were, you went through some things. If you scored a 1 or 3, it proved that you were physically healthy. I guess that could be the other end of the spectrum there.
Right.
And remember that because I scored a 10, I could also have just had, like, I could have been beat, homeless, and abused majority of my life. But somebody else who scored this 10, their trauma was they were raped and put into a sex trafficking ring and was burned with hangers every Thursday night. Right? So those individuals have proven to be less healthier.
Now, can the reverse happen? Let's say you scored 7 or 8, high level of childhood trauma. You're less physically healthy, but then you change your physical health to then improve how you deal with the trauma. Is that a thing?
Absolutely it is, bro. Absolutely it is. And that started in the mental health. That's going to start when you acknowledge that there's a trauma, process that trauma, chart your growth, be mindful of that, have the voice, discuss, talk about it, know the impact of it. ACE is a longitudinal study, right? This talking about live. This is done over years. And over those years is how they discovered the heart disease, the lupus, the high blood pressure, the obesity, and all those things. But you're absolutely right. You could have adverse childhood experiences on one side, and then you turn out to be the president of the United States. You beat it all.
Well,
it reminds you of remember the twin study when they had the twins and they put them in different households to grow up, and one was like in the hood of thugs, and one was like in a prestigious environment. And they were trying to see if these criminal behaviors were in your blood, in your genes, or in your upbringing. Right. And that test went all over the place because on a lot of occasions it was proven that it was in your genes, and then on other occasions it was like, no, it was your environment.
Right.
So it's all a study, man.
Now your radical positivity. What are as we close out? What are some of the things that you're into currently?
So currently we are providing clinical direction and clinical support for a nonprofit agency in Washington, D.C. called Associates for Renewal and Education. What makes ARE very, very powerful is that they are one of the very few programs in the District of Columbia that provides after-school services to children with autism. Autism is your new, I don't want to say that, but it's the thing now that's where all the funding is going for Black men and Black boys. So we're there in the District of Columbia. We are in Baltimore at a federally qualified health center, Total Health Care, that provides health support services to a very impoverished community, and we're training there. So we're enjoying that. That's coming off pretty strong, and we're still providing direct one-to-one and couples counseling. So that's good. That's what we're into right now during the COVID season. So we're trying to keep down
couples counseling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're doing couples counseling. Exactly.
How can they reach you?
Oh, well, I love it. They can go to itsradicalpositivity.com. Itsradicalpositivity.com. If anybody's interested in some of our outreach initiatives during the COVID season and the pandemic and this social injustice season, we have taken on the initiatives to feed the homeless and provide them with pandemic care packages. We have supported women's shelter and Prince George's County men's shelter as well. So
good. I appreciate it. Hey man, thanks for stopping by, man. This has been I always say I gotta my favorite phrase is, can somebody smarter than me explain this, please? And so I always got to bring the experts on to talk that talk and give answers where most of us cannot. So I appreciate you stopping by. Let's Go Live. Hopefully you'll be come through again.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for all you're doing. You're doing a great job, Lamont. I appreciate you.
Hey, man. Appreciate you. I'll get back.
Indeed.
There it is. All right. Hey, man, I appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. I just really felt compelled to bring that one back today on a Throwback Thursday because of everything that's going on right now. Don't forget about yourself. Self-care. We are dealing with a lot. We are not okay. If you need to take a break, take that break. If you need to meditate, go do traumatic yoga, take a trip. Don't tell nobody. Jump off social media for a few days. If you need to do it, do it. Take the time out, man. No one has all the answers. We're not gonna figure it out. And so yeah, just know that these are weird times. This is not normal. This is abnormal. Ain't a new normal. It's abnormal. But anyway, so I just wanted to bring that back. I know some of you. We got some new viewers who were not here when that episode first aired. So hopefully you got something out of that. Can take some takeaways. So yeah, man. So right about this time, we like to leave on a lesson still, and get a word from an elder in a segment I like to call "Hi, Dad."
Happy every day, brothers and sisters. This is Alpha Papa with today's reflections. Wow. What is happening now with our brothers and sisters in the sports world is truly amazing. This speaks for itself. I want to comment on a part of this situation that has been underreported. This 17-year-old white kid kills two and wounds another with an assault rifle while the police stand by. He is not shot. Does that also tell you something? Watch this very carefully. Peace and blessings to all. Alpha Papa.
All righty, folks. Tomorrow, I promise it'll be all fun and games, man. Of course, with John Watson for Let's Go Live, all fun and games. That's the Friday version of the show you know and love. Trending topics, celebrity interviews, hilarious commentary, and interesting people. So hopefully y'all can make it back and visit us tomorrow and catch the show and let somebody know that you're watching it, because that'd be a beautiful thing. Also, I didn't go through our sponsors. We're also sponsored by Bargain Bay Buys. All your reselling needs, go check that out. And yeah, we're still accepting funds to cover all the production costs. Allows us to do the things that we do here in Tiny Closet and Drunken Fruit Studios.
I don't care if it is a closet. You still looking mad efficient.
Thank you. So yeah, go ahead and do that. And that's about it, man. Really just take care of yourself and self-care. That's all I can really say about that. The trauma is real. So the answer to that is self-care. Protect yourself. Take care of yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Lord willing, we'll see y'all tomorrow. That's all the time we have. Roland, we'll try to get you in tomorrow. I appreciate you for standing by, and for everybody else.